Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give a few minutes to let everybody join, but if you have any technical issues, please let me know in the question and answer box, and today's call will be recorded. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. As Megan just mentioned, as people are joining, we would like everyone to respond to a quick poll that will help us to better understand what is top of mind for you related to early care and education workforce. My name is Monica Ramos. As the Operations Director for the National Early Care and Education Workforce, I'm pleased to welcome you to this webinar that will introduce the center, including leadership team and staff, goals, our vision to carry out those goals, and our thinking about year one activities. Because we have so many participants, the chat is not available, though we do encourage you to put questions in the Q&A. Everyone should be seeing the first poll question. Welcome if you're just joining. We'll be getting started in a second after folks answer the poll question.
And we have about 50% who have responded. I'll give a few more minutes for everybody else to add their input.
Welcome if you're just joining the webinar. We're taking a second to do a quick poll so we can hear from you all about what is the most pressing issues for the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center.
Okay.
Wonderful. All right, so we have some of the poll results. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. As with all our work, we want to hear directly from those in and in support of the early care and education workforce. We are hearing that with 89% of people are saying that increasing compensation and benefits for the early care and education workforce center is one of the most pressing issues, followed by 60% saying increasing resources for financing and early care and education team. We certainly hear you all, and we will be addressing those issues. So thank you for sharing with us. I will now turn it to Amy Madigan and Kimberly Burgess-Sims, who will welcome you and briefly discuss the Administration for Children and Families vision for funding the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're calling us from. My name is Amy Madigan. I'm with the Administration for Children and Families in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and I am one of the co-federal project officers for the new Workforce Center, and I'm just really thrilled to be here to be helping to introduce this project to you all. So we are really extremely excited in ACF about this new effort. And we've heard so much over the last several years about the really unprecedented challenges that the ECE field is facing in recruiting and retaining staff, which we all know, is not a new issue. But we also know that states and communities are really poised to address these issues. They're making bold changes now. And over the last several years, we heard in numerous conversations with ECE leaders, with Head Start providers, with childcare providers, early educators, teachers, and others, really spotlighting the need for more support for the workforce. And While we know there are a lot of resources out there and supports out there, we felt that the challenges we're facing right now are just so great and so persistent. There's still a ways to go. And this just seemed like a time when a dedicated, targeted, coordinated effort was really needed to address the challenges related to ECE workforce. And so this was really the impetus for the Workforce Center. It's just a very clear and urgent need to leverage our existing efforts, to build on them, to fill remaining gaps, and to spur innovation to ensure that ECE educators and providers are receiving the compensation and the supports that reflect their value. So to that end, earlier this year, ACF awarded this new cooperative agreement, investing $30 million over the next 5 years to carry out this important work. We're really excited about the joint and integrated approach to research and TA together with this center. This is a new thing for ACF, and we think it offers a really great opportunity to make some progress in both what we know and in what we're doing to support the workforce. I also want to note that we are committed to addressing these issues across the full scope of the mixed delivery system. These are challenges that are shared across early childhood programs and settings, and we're really excited about the opportunity to tackle them together. And I'll also note the center is a partnership across ACF offices. We're pooling funds from Head Start, from CCDF, from preschool development grants, birth through 5, as well as from ACF's research and evaluation shop to move forward on this issue. And we are really designed to leverage our existing research and TA investments and to build on the wealth of existing expertise that's out there through partnership and coordination. That's really a central feature of the work that we're going to be doing. And we're really just thrilled to beginning it. To be beginning this work together. And we're thrilled by the level of interest that we're already hearing from the field and from all of you. And I'm excited that just to have the chance to hear directly from the Workforce Center team today. Before I turn it over to them, I just want to give my co-federal project officer, Kim Burgess-Sims, who's with the Office of Early Childhood Development in ACF. I want to give her a chance to share a few words with you about how this new effort relates to some of the other ongoing federal efforts to support the workforce. So Kim?
Thanks so much, Amy. I'm honored to join with Amy as a federal project officer on this very important investment in the new National Early Care and Education Workforce Center. I'm going to introduce you to that team in just a moment, but before I do, we wanted to acknowledge, if you can show the next slide, this is not an issue that ACF is tackling on our own, and this is not an issue we are tackling only through this Workforce Center. We are working in partnership with other agencies, and this is a top priority for the Biden-Harris administration. Last month, hopefully you all saw that President Biden signed a sweeping executive order focused on care across the life cycle, including young children, people with disabilities, and seniors. And this is a whole of government approach with more than 50 executive actions to be implemented by HHS, Education, Department of Labor, USDA, VA, SBA, OPM. It's very significant that nearly all agencies are called upon to take some responsibility for early childhood and for supporting caregivers. We're really excited about this work, and we will share more with you in the coming months. This slide highlights some of the actions for HHS and for us at the Administration for Children and Families, and we have already made progress towards some of these actions that are in the executive order. So with that, I'm just so excited to be partnering with the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center on this work and to introduce you today to the incredible leadership team, including Krishana Lloyd, co-director for Research and Knowledge Development at Child Trends, Tanya Costin, co-director for Technical Assistance at the BUILD Initiative, and Elena Montoya, Research to Practice Lead at the Center for the Study of Childcare Employment. I'll pass it to you, Krishana. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kim. Let me just start off by saying what a privilege it is to be able to work with such dedicated, thoughtful, available, and smart colleagues and federal project officers. It's been a short amount of time, really 5 months, and we've been connecting with each other and really learning how to work together as a group in beginning to map out the work of the center for this year. Some of this work has entailed meeting with federal representatives, and that includes our federal project officers, their colleagues, and higher ups. And we've been referring to these folks as the integrated project team. They're representatives who've contributed resources, and when I say resources, I mean cold hard cash, as well as intellectual resources to the center. So we've met with and we've talked to and we've heard from folks in early childhood development. Katie Ham, Albert Watt, we've talked to Head Start people, Sarah Merrill, Kari Garvin, who's really brand new on the job and already, from what we can tell, is in it to win it. We've got Ruth Friedman and Anne Marie and Paula Smith and Jenny at the Office of Child Care, Amanda Coleman, Ann Rivera at OPRE. Just a ton of people, right? We've been connecting with the National Technical Assistance Centers, Danny over at the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center, and Laura Johns at the National Center on Early Childhood Quality Assurance, ancillary organizations like the National African American Child and Family Center, philanthropists like Homegrown and the Foundation for Child Development. You see where I'm going here, right? Media, Early Learning Nation, the Education Writers Association, so many organizations, so many people interested and invested in the hard work of really wanting to bolster perception and the positioning of, and the compensation and the retention of the early care and education workforce. We can go to the next slide. I just want to say that we're really no different in this respect. We have a big team and our team is honored. We're excited, we're proud, and frankly humbled to be chosen for this work. We think we've got the right combination of folks to raise a little ruckus and to make some dents in this important issue. And in doing so, we've really committed to being careful, to being diligent, to being intentional in our efforts to support positive change for the early care and education workforce. And as you can see from this slide, right, there are a lot of us. There's 6 core partners who will lead the work of the center, and they're listed here. In federal parlance, Child Trends is the prime, which basically means that we're heading up for this center, the administration and the operations. As Kim mentioned, we're also leading the research and the research and the knowledge development leg of the stool, which is my wheelhouse as the co-leader of the center. And then Child Trends is really, just if you don't know much about us, has been conducting research on children and families for quite some time. And so I'm supported by a number of people on the research side of the coin, including Katie Paschal, who's on family leave right now, and Tamara Halley. And you'll hear from her a little bit later as a lead for a core research activity. As Kim mentioned, you'll also hear from Tanya Costin at Build. They're an organization with vast technical assistance experience at state and local levels, and with varied sectors of the early care and education workforce. And you'll also hear from Elena Montoya at the Center for the Study of Child Care Employment, our California colleagues. They've been operating in the research to practice space for quite some time, including an intensive focus on the early care and education workforce for over 20 years. We've got other core partners who you see here, 0 to 3, the Delaware Institute for Excellence in Early Childhood at the University of Delaware, the Institute for the Early Education Leadership and Innovation at UMass Boston. They really round out our core group. Between them all, we have expertise in babies and toddlers and translating early childhood development and science into programs and training and resources, and really linking this work to policy solutions and partnering with early care and education educators themselves, as well as other professionals across many different levels to advance the field. And then we have some secondary partners that are in the mix too, and Elena will talk about them a little bit later as we talk about this research to practice connection. So we can go to the next slide. So in thinking about the work, what is the work? We really want you to have a clear sense of what we're going to be doing and what the center entails. And we've identified some common questions that have continuously come up as we've been connecting with people, as we've been hearing from you during registration. And I'm hoping this slide, although it's brief, will help you to get a better sense of some answers to some of those questions. So what you'll see here really in an abbreviated form is that the center will be a convener. we'll be a collaborator, we'll be a resource creator, we'll be a provider of all things early care and education workforce. We don't have money to give, because that certainly has been a question that has come up, but we've got a lot of expertise at the table. We've got curiosity, and we've got folks who think out of the box and who can really help you to really think about how to be strategic about early care and education workforce issues that you might be facing, whether it's in your state, in locales, in communities, in tribes, and territories across the country. We really are about strengthening and coordinating across systems. And we know these systems are fragmented, and we know that's in large part because of the history of our country and the perception of the field and those who do the work. We're focused on 5 policy areas, and I'll talk about those in a few, but this simply means that we understand that these issues that are related to the early care and education workforce are complex. There's no single strategy for addressing them, and we understand that we need a multifaceted approach to dealing with them. We're also simultaneously interested in addressing immediate needs. So we've got this long-term vision around the workforce, but we're concerned about things like the loss of the workforce, for example, which is definitely critical right now and something that we're all feeling. At the same time, we want to be forward thinking, we want to be innovative, and we want to be context specific. So we've got kind of a short-term plan and a longer-term plan. And finally, really most important, is that our work is going to be undergirded by and responsive to the voices of the educators themselves, and in the spirit of ensuring equity and the preservation of a diverse workforce. We feel that this is critically important and really the key way to reduction of barriers, advancement, and compensation systems. So that's just a little bit about the work, our goals, and how we're thinking about it. You can go to the next slide. So what are we going to be doing? Kind of what are the key activities that we're thinking about? There are 5 listed here. Leadership, coordination, and partnership is really in the spirit of what I discussed about that kind of convener role, talking to all of those different players at the federal level, at state levels, all of the things that are happening across the country related to the workforce, more directly, and also in professions that may or may not be directly related to early care and education, learning, coordinating, and convening, so we can be innovative about our solutions. Our primary activities that you'll hear about today are the technical assistance. And again, you'll hear about that from Tanya Costin. She's not able to be with us live today, so you'll see a video of her presenting about that work. Elena Montoya, again, will talk to us about research and knowledge development. Tamara Halley, excuse me. And then Elena Montoya will talk to us about the research and practice piece. Okay, and then we have a communications arm, and we won't have time to get into that today, but that really is the place. If you're interested in the work of the center, if you want to come learn about what we're doing, we will have a landing place for people to come, and we're calling that the hub. And that will be available for people interested in research, people interested in technical assistance, folks interested in research to practice. So it'll be a multifaceted website online where people can come and engage with the work of the center, and we're in the process of, getting that together and rolling it out. But those are kind of the key and the primary activities that will take place in the center, and you'll hear a little bit about those in a few. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Monica, who will initiate the next poll.
Hi, thank you. Now we want to take a little bit of time to do a second poll for the session before we dive into our main activities for the center for year 1. I also want to acknowledge that there are questions in the Q&A. Thank you for those questions. We are addressing them as we go along right now. So please take a moment to answer the second poll question to identify the types of tools or resources that will be most useful for supporting the Early Care and Education Workforce Center. And this question is a select all apply, so we're happy to hear all the ways that the Workforce Center wants to be engaged. I'll give folks a few more seconds. If you want to add more questions in the Q&A, we'll be compiling them for a FAQ later on that we will be sharing. All right, thank you. We have our responses, and wow, we see that there is a pretty consistent 40 to 50% mark for almost all the options that we had there. We're glad that we're right on point there, and we'll be working on these resources throughout our center. Thank you for that information. As Krishana mentioned, our co-director for technical assistance, Tanya Costin, who joined the center, drawing on many years of experience in the New Jersey State Department government to operationalize our TA work, is unavailable today, though she has shared a video that offers an overview of our technical assistance plans, which we will play now.
My name is Tanya Costin, and I am the co-director for the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center, overseeing technical assistance and housed at Build Initiative, one of the core partners. I have more than 2 decades of experience supporting families and children through efforts that span the early childhood space, involving collaboration and coordination across Head Start, childcare, health, human services, and labor, all during my tenure with the New Jersey Department of Education. I'm excited about the work ahead, and I will be joined by Raquel Diaz, the co-lead for Targeted and Intensive TA housed at Child Trends, and Mayra Rodriguez, Gretchen Ames, Danielle Fuentes Johnson, TA Specialist Support at Build. The rest of the team will come aboard in June. Listed on the slide are the technical assistant goals aligned with the center goals and guiding principles. Those across the workforce, including but not limited to Head Start, childcare, home-based childcare, states, territories, and tribes, and other programs and groups that intersect with the workforce, can participate in technical assistance, as we want to ensure we are not missing out on supporting innovation and change as we look to retain, rebuild, and grow the workforce while addressing issues and concerns that plague the workforce. TA will be targeted and tailored to meet the diverse and specific needs of the varied sectors, from Head Start to the subsidy system to home-based childcare, as we are all having one common goal of supporting the early care and education workforce. TA will be offered in the following ways. Universal TA is intended to have a broad reach that incorporates several strategies, including webinars, multimedia products and resources, topical campaigns, monthly Workforce Wednesday e-blasts, research summaries, a quarterly What's Up Workforce webinar series, and the ECE Workforce Hub, which will include interactive tools, fact sheets, existing as well as new content, along with a crowdsource feature so Hub users can suggest additional content. Targeted TA will be delivered in a community of practice. It will be cohort-based. This will allow Head Start, childcare, states, territory and tribes, and locales to be engaged in real-time group and individual interactions in a peer learning format to support reflection, change in knowledge, and actions to address change. Finally, starting in year 2, we will offer intensive TA, which is one-on-one TA focused on a specific effort or strategy. There will be upcoming webinars giving participants an opportunity to learn more about the content and commitment and how to sign up. Teams will be made up of individuals from the same state that sign up for a particular TA opportunity. On this slide is just a little more detail about our offerings during year one. The foundational series, which is a 6-session series for teams to identify and analyze workforce data, including through direct engagement with the field for whom the existing policies and systems are least effective. The series will also identify historically and currently marginalized populations to help teams understand opportunities and barriers and map out strategies that could support credentialing, compensation, along with opportunities to create and enhance connections and partnerships across the workforce for creating transparency and accountability. The community of practice will fall under the following topics: developing wage and salary scales, improving workforce data, system strategies to improve working conditions, creating inclusive, equitable pathways in partnership with higher education, and finally, centering early care and education in the workforce. We will also have new resources that will leverage existing content and fill the gaps using the knowledge gained from the environmental scan and our landscape analysis. There's a lot of exciting things coming with TA. There will be no one-size-fits-all strategies. There will be multiple opportunities for engagement. Please use the email address that is found on the slide to contact us. Send us any questions or concerns or ideas that you would like to hear about further from the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center. With that, I'm going to turn it over so you can hear more about research, development, and knowledge. Thank you. Hi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I'm now going to turn it over to Tamara Halley, my colleague, who is a steering committee member and the environmental scan lead.
Thanks, Monica, and welcome everyone. My name is Tamara Halley, and it's my pleasure to share with you a bit about the research and knowledge development activities of the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center. There are several goals for research and knowledge development within the Workforce Center. The first is to advance the field's understanding of the state of the early care and education workforce and the systems that support them. We'll do this by conducting original research and by synthesizing existing research to identify and explore gaps in our knowledge base around the workforce and address emerging issues. Another goal is to be the go-to source for research and information on the early care and education workforce. We'll lead the field in evaluating innovations that will help workforce members from all sectors, backgrounds, geographic locations, and stages in their professional development. And the members of the research and knowledge development team will coordinate closely with the research to practice and technical assistance teams of the center so that research can effectively inform Head Start, childcare, tribal, state, and local policy and practice, as well as the technical assistance functions of the center. Like all activities of the Workforce Center, all of our research and knowledge development activities will be organized around 5 policy areas that have guided the Workforce Index produced by the Center for the Study of Child Care Employment, and some of those topics were mentioned in Tanya's remarks just a minute ago. These include qualifications and educational supports, compensation, environmental supports, data and data systems, and financial resources. And this overarching framework is going to facilitate the coordination of our work across the Workforce Center's multiple functions. Next slide, please. Okay. Policymakers, practitioners, and other researchers will be engaged in the research and knowledge development activities of the Workforce Center in several ways. For example, one of the research activities we're doing right now is the environmental scan, which is gathering and synthesizing existing research to clarify what we know about the workforce and what's working for them, and also where there are challenges and gaps in our knowledge. We've already started connecting with other researchers to share information about our work at the center and our approach, and to learn more about their projects. And this will help us learn more deeply about the work in the field and avoid duplicating efforts. The foundational activity of the environmental scan will inform both the research agenda and technical assistance work of the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center in the years to come. Program and workforce members may also be part of our original research agenda that's unfolding this year and will continue to expand in the years to come. For example, we'll engage workforce members actively in our research and evaluation activities, such as case studies and program evaluations, to make sure we have their perspective on the design and interpretation of our research studies, and so that their voices are presented and represented authentically in the research. Another research activity is developing and delivering trainings for researchers to build their capacity to use existing workforce data. And finally, the research and knowledge development team will be supporting the evaluation of intensive technical assistance activities of the Workforce Center by developing a tool that programs can use to assess their progress in meeting their individualized goals. If you'd like more information about the center's research and knowledge development activities, you can reach our team at this email address, workforcecenter@childtrends.org. And now I'd like to pass the presentation on to my colleague, Elena Montoya, who leads our research to practice activities.
Hi, everyone. I am Elena Montoya, and I am again at the Center for the Study of Child Care Employment at UC Berkeley. And our team here also includes Leah Austin and Caitlin McLean, who are on our steering committee, as well as participating in other activities, and other staff members who will be supporting both research and TA. We are really excited about the National ECE Workforce Center's unique inclusion of both research and technical assistance, and its really explicit focus on research to practice. Through research to practice activities, we bridge and connect research, policy, and practice so that research findings are translated into actionable information that can be used by our TA staff and broader stakeholders, and so that the TA activities both reflect and inform future research. So this work is woven throughout center activities. We just heard from the research and technical assistance teams about scans that they are conducting to gather and compile information about existing research and technical assistance resources. Both of these teams will use the information gained in these scans to inform their work. For example, the best practices and strategies learned in the research scan will inform the inclusion and development of resources and toolkits used by the TA team, and that can be shared with other stakeholders. Tanya also mentioned the research summaries. This is another thing that through coordinating with research and TA, we will summarize key research findings and translate them into usable information that we can share with stakeholders. As another example, the research team briefly mentioned they're planning for some evaluation studies. For example, they may do an evaluation of apprenticeship programs. As the research team is developing research questions, they will work closely with the research to practice team to make sure that the findings will be useful and translatable to TA activities. Likewise, our evaluations of TA work will inform the research agenda. So the work of research to practice includes this bridging connecting, but also applying an RTP and equity lens to the work of the center. And this provides an opportunity to keep the 5 essential policy areas threaded throughout our work. So for example, if a TA team is supporting a local or state team that is working on one of the 5 essential areas, perhaps educational supports, but is not yet focused on any of the other areas, part of our work with them will be to strategize on how they can assess and ultimately address each of the areas and plan for that, even as they prioritize or focus efforts on a particular item for the time being. At the core of the research to practice work is really just ensuring that the research we do is for the purposes of informing policy and practice, and that we're learning from technical assistance, and that what we're doing is in concert with educators and those closest to the work in the field. With these goals in mind, there are a couple of essential activities that the Research to Practice team is organizing. We can go to the next slide, please. So one of the first activities is that we are developing an ECE Educator Leadership Board. This board is part of a broader context of our commitment to educator engagement across the center. Members of the board will help advise the center and provide feedback and guidance on activities across research, technical assistance, and research to practice. The board is essential to ensuring that the work we do is meaningful and impactful to the workforce. The board will be composed of educators from settings across the sector, including home-based programs, Head Start, tribal childcare, state pre-K, and other centers across the US, and will have a goal of representing those who have been furthest from opportunity. We're currently developing the details of the scope, activities, and recruitment process, as well as thinking through the best way to compensate educators for their time. We plan to recruit educators this summer and select board members this fall. There are a few ways you can engage with us to help us with this work. First, we do want to include educators in our planning for the board. So we'll be holding input sessions for educators this summer. If you can connect us with educators who might be interested in being part of this, please reach out. And we are also going to want help to distribute program information and application materials as soon as they're available, so that we can really ensure that we have broad reach. Next is a policy and research fellowship. The center will create and implement an integrated research and policy fellowship program. Through the program, we'll engage 2 policy fellows and 2 research fellows each year to deepen their expertise about key issues impacting the workforce and to build research and policy capacity in the field. The fellows will explore a question, topic, or policy focused on one or more of the 5 essential policy areas. They'll engage in gatherings to learn skills, build a common language, network with one another, and with mentors in the field. The fellowship will be a part-time, year-long program, ensuring that fellows can still be active in the workforce while participating, and each fellow will also receive a stipend. Recruitment strategies and selection criteria, like the educator board, will prioritize those that have been furthest from opportunity. One thing we are really excited about is that at least one of the policy fellowships each year will be designated for a candidate who is currently working as an educator or is in a related role but has been an educator within the last 3 years. We're currently developing the program and plan to recruit fellows throughout the fall. The 4 fellows will be selected and notified this winter. If you administer a similar program and would be willing to talk with us about it, about lessons learned, what has worked well, as well as challenges, please reach out. We really want to understand what other programs are doing and also not to duplicate other opportunities that are available. And again, if you would be willing to help distribute materials once they're ready, we would love for you to reach out to us about that. So next is our Learning Through Action Consortium. Through our Learning Through Action Consortium, we develop partnerships with organizations focused on the workforce to leverage existing and future related work and ensure that the center's work is value added. We have identified 8 organizations that are part of our consortium. These are the secondary partners that Krishana mentioned earlier. The engagement with individual consortium partners will be ongoing, but we will also gather the full consortium twice a year to engage in shared reflection and learning. Membership in the consortium may rotate based on current priorities and activities. As one example of working with the secondary partners, organizations will contribute to TA activities, including the planning and implementation of communities of practice as related to their areas of expertise. As I mentioned, the membership of the consortium may rotate based on activities and our work plans for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of the National ECE Workforce Center. We'll identify other potential partners throughout the life cycle of the center. And we would love for you to reach out to us if you would like to discuss ways that we can partner together in future years. I think now, so again, here are the partners that Krishana mentioned earlier and that the secondary partners are part of the consortium. And I think we have a little bit of extra time and I'm going to be handing it over to Monica. Can you help me out?
Yes, yes.
Who are we going to?
You can go to the next slide. I will leave this slide up for a second, just so that you have the information. If you want to connect with us, please reach out to myself, Krishana, Elena, or Tanya. You can use the Workforce Center email listed on this slide. Because we have about 20 minutes left in this time, we are going to take some time to answer the question and answers that we got in the box, in the Q&A box. Right. Kimberly, will you kick us off or something?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you all. One of the questions that came in the chat is, can you share what you mean by usable information and what makes this program different from the many Talk projects?
So I'm happy to jump in on this, and I'm sure my esteemed colleagues will jump in as well if they have other thoughts. I think one of the reasons why we've been so excited about this center, and one thing that keeps continuously coming up in our conversations about them, is this connection between the link to research and technical assistance. So that research to practice piece. And if you look at the slide, right, you see it there. I'm over on the left, and then Elena is in the middle, and Tanya is on the right, kind of leading that effort. And so what we're really wanting to do is to be integrated, to be connected, as we talked about, that no single strategy and multiple points of really being able to address some of these issues related to the workforce. We know that we need applied research, not just kind of ivory tower stuff that's hanging out there, but research that really can inform the field. And so these arms, these legs of the stool will really be talking to each other. Tanya and Elena and I spend tons of time together and thinking about the foundation of the center and how we're going to launch and how we're going to address some of these issues. So it really means a lot of coordination. In addition to that, so it's not, the talk. We're doing a lot of talking now, but the talking is for the action for later, right? Really kind of building up the foundation of the work so that we can move forward. I think the other piece to really mention that's critically important is that we know there are a lot of efforts happening across the other national centers. We know there are other research efforts happening that are federally funded, that are also not federally funded between our team. And you saw that big team, right, of core partners and our secondary team. Our secondary group of partners that we're working with, we've kind of got tentacles and eyes and ears in a lot of different places. And so we're hoping to bring that information together in regular meetings with our core, with our secondary partners, with the federal government, with people that are doing work on the workforce outside of that, to really think about how to synthesize and integrate that information in a way that's meaningful for the field. I will say the other thing that's important to that point too. So we're kind of like the highway, if that's, if you need a visual, right? And they're kind of off ramps and on ramps to the highway, but we're really, as the Workforce Center, really trying to convene and bring together those different voices. One last point about this, which I think is something that we've been thinking about a lot, is the Workforce Center is funded by, and I mentioned this kind of earlier, a bunch of different folks, right? And so they have different interests, they have different needs, different contexts. And those things, what we're working on and what we want to partner around is making sure that they're tailored, the resources that we develop. The research that we do is really applicable to the various and the wide-ranging facets of the early care and education workforce, right? Head Start looks very different than home-based childcare, or even when you think about, early Head Start, right, and home-based childcare, that it's happening in early Head Start versus kind of outside of that system, right? So we really want to think about the systems themselves, what they need, what the rules and regulations are that are guiding those systems and serving as boundaries for them, and tailoring the work as such so that we're able to meet the needs. And that's happening, or should be happening, on multiple levels, from a state level to a local level to a community level. So I'd say thinking about those multiple streams, the tailoring, and really kind of the convening to understand. So we're not duplicating and we're not reinforcing inequities in the process. Long answer. I hope that answered the question, but feel free to jump back in if it did not.
It's a great question. Or a great answer, Krishana. So another question that came in the chat says, I would love to hear if anything is being done to address the fact that people are not going into the field of early childhood. In New York State, in order to work in a center, you have to meet the degree requirements. Unfortunately, people are not going to the field. Do you know if this is being addressed other than wage increases? So a complex question about building that pipeline?
Yes, if you may, I can take a first stab at answering this, and but others can jump in. Thank you for the question, Karen. So within the environmental scan that we're doing this year, we are not only doing a scan of institutes of higher education, tribal colleges, historically Black colleges and universities, and minority serving institutions to see how many are currently even offering degree programs in early care and education, how many are doing that, and also to speak with some of the individuals who are engaged in running those programs to understand any promising practices that they are having in terms of recruiting and retaining students in their programs to help elevate some innovations perhaps that are happening on the ground. So that's some of the work that we're doing even within our environmental scan this first year. And although it might not yield definitive information by the end of this year, we hope that whatever we gather will be shared back through the resources of this workforce center to help inform future research and practice activities. And does somebody else want to also take a stab at that?
I think that was right on track.
There's a number of questions also coming in about how to engage with the center. How do we get involved with the communities of practice? Can you reshare again what the TA communities of practice will focus on? And how can we get in touch with the TA team?
Susan, do you want to jump in on that one, or?
I'll unmute myself. That always helps. Sure. And I'm sorry, Tanya couldn't be here today, but the communities of practice, the topics in year one are developing wage and salary scales, improving workforce and data, system strategies to improve working conditions, creating inclusive, equitable pathways in partnership with higher education, and centering early care and education in the workforce. And in addition to that, there was the foundational series that was described briefly, and some of those communities of practice will play off key topics that'll be central to the foundational series, you know, using data and what data do you have. These will be offered, you know, the foundational series in each region. Tons of information will go out about how to sign up and how to participate. The foundational series will be open universally. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to participate. And I saw another question about participation that asked, I think, about could technical assistance partners participate, I think was the question. Was that right, Kim? Did you see? Yeah. So, I mean, I think there'll be a differentiation between people who will actually participate in communities of practice and people who could listen in, because it's going to be important for them to also share in the information and to be in the same conversation, but not to actually be a participant. So a technical assistance partner or other trainer would be in that category. Whereas a state, territory, tribal leader, administrator, program director, manager, coach, supervisor, mentor, state staff, policy leader, licensing, QRIS team, childcare home or center-based director, they would be participants. But a technical assistance partner or trainer would be more of a able to listen in. So, you know, we'll be sending out a ton of information about how you can participate. We had on the slide a general email address so that you could contact the Workforce Center. And then there's an email address when the TA team contacts you so you can get back in touch with the TA team. But I think the best thing right now is just to use the Workforce Center general email address. Can that slide be put back up?
Yeah, and we'll definitely, the slides will be I know that was one of the questions,
Yes.
whether or
Well,
not people will get the slides. So we'll certainly have those out, and that email address will be on there.
yeah, there it is. workforcecenter@childtrends.org.
Thanks, Susan. There's another question that came in here. It says, will family child care providers, I think, Susan, you just mentioned family child care providers in the community of practices, but one of the questions was, will family child care providers be included in planning and implementing different legs of these projects? As a leader in the FCC community, I'd like to be part of this project and give input on the needs that are unique to family child care providers and possibly bring forth a workforce apprenticeship for home-based providers to obtain their teaching credentials and or a degree or further education. And this would be a great incentive for attracting new providers to come into the field.
Yes, and you can picture how many different aspects of the center that actually will be reaching out to family child care providers, because in year one, there'll be a vetting of a tool related to family child care providers to help family child care providers identify their wages. It was so clear during the child care stabilization grants how hard it is to identify wages, because it's, a different beast. It's different than, sort of profit margins. And so there's going to be a tool created, sort of like a mortgage calculator, a little calculator. So we'll be doing vetting of a draft of that tool and vetting that with family child care providers. So one thing will be, seeking input on that. Then, as with all early educators, we'll be seeking input in many different venues about all kinds of research questions, resources, et cetera. And then there'll be COPs. And on a COP topic, there can be different kinds of cohorts for a COP. So when we're talking about wage and salary scales, for example, one cohort on wage and salary scales may just be at a program level. Another cohort might be just at a state level. And so I think there will be definitely COPs that will be both inclusive of family child care providers and others that will be geared towards family child care. So absolutely.
Just to add to that the educator board will absolutely include members from home-based and family child care. And like Susan was starting to discuss, we're going to have a variety of activities we want people to review, strategize with us on, and even contribute to. So there may be communities of practice where we want educators to speak, to share what they know about what's happening or how it impacts them and the other educators they know. So there will be many opportunities, and we would love to hear your ideas, or if you work with family child care providers and can put us in touch with them. Right now, we really are just trying to pull together all of the different resources and organizations who are doing work with educators to talk to you and about what you're doing. Again, not to duplicate things, and also hopefully that we can be resources for each other in connecting educators to the work that we're all trying to do.
And I'd like to. Okay, go ahead, Krishana.
I just wanted to mention one thing on that point, which we kind of talked about at the beginning, but maybe didn't dig into, is that, when we have 5 guiding principles that are really guiding the work of the center, and we haven't talked about those so much, but one of them is really squarely steeped in this idea of equity, right? Equity as a process and equity as an outcome for the workforce, for ourselves as the center, and also for the workforce more generally. And we know, based on research, we know based on our own experiences, that home-based childcare is often left out of the equation, right? That particular segment of the early care and education workforce, although we're female dominated, is female dominated, but also consists of a large number of women of color, of immigrant women. And we understand the lack of access to resources there. We understand the inequities around compensation that happen often with the home-based childcare workforce. And so I just want to make sure for, whoever posed that question, that this is something that is definitely top of mind for the center and really grounded in our principles around ensuring equity and making sure that whatever it is that we're kind of working on and putting forward, whether, and all of our work will be informed by educator voice, but that means all educators, right? But even the work and the strategies that we're thinking about, the innovation, the way that we're building in strengths, again, part of the guiding principles that we really didn't get to touch on a whole heck of a lot, that really is in consideration of all facets of the early care and education workforce, but understanding that home-based childcare in particular has been disadvantaged.
And I'll just add one more thing from the, excuse me, research and knowledge development side of things. Part of our outreach to other federally funded projects includes reaching out to projects that are focused specifically on home-based childcare. We talked to that team earlier this week, and we will be trying to elevate and highlight the work that these other researchers and research teams are doing through the synthesis and dissemination and communication activities of the center. So we really do want to be seen as a go-to place for information about the Workforce Center, about the early childhood workforce, and not just creating our own work here. We are elevating all the great work that's being done within and outside of this center, because we know that there is a lot of different pieces. And so also wanted to acknowledge that several of our partners in our secondary partners are focused on the home-based workforce, including the National Association for Family Child Care and All Our Kin. So we do, we will have that sector, that subgroup of the workforce front and center as part of the work of across research, technical assistance, and research to practice.
Kind of building from this conversation, I just wanted to raise another couple questions that came in about other segments of the workforce. So there was a question about how this center is going to partner with the Tribal Capacity Building Center and with Head Start TNTA networks in the regions. Can you talk a little bit about those sectors of the workforce as well?
I can speak to the research again and say that we're already in touch with the Tribal Consortium, and we have actually a direct connection with that group through our colleagues at Child Trends, who are also content specialists on tribal and Native workforce members within our center at Child Trends. So we are going to have that connection. We will be coordinating research efforts. We already know that this is another part of the workforce that there is a dearth of information about, and we want to help develop more research information and also innovative practice techniques and supports for that sector of the workforce.
I mean, I think in each of these areas, it's the same in technical assistance, that when there are partners and other assets to share, we're so eager to work together, have in the past, and will continue to. And especially in areas that have not received adequate focus, it's so important to keep building that focus. So we're very excited to be able to do that and have already begun the work.
And I think just one other point to make is that, Workforce Wednesdays are heating back up, right? And we have the Workforce Wednesday Collaborative, which is really a nice mechanism for coordinating across the various sectors and the different populations of interest.
There's one more question here in the chat that I wanted to lift up, which is about whether anyone has done a landscape scan of emerging and promising innovations in the long-term sustainable ECE compensation. What is working? And if so, will you share?
I guess I'll take that as well. There's another federally funded research project that's focused, that precedes this workforce center, that was focused on innovations and ways to support recruitment and retention of the workforce. The acronym is the BASE project. And they are coming out with several, both policy briefs and research briefs, and they're designing a qualitative study that will be conducted. And we've already, yet again, met with that project group. And we will be following their work, we will be elevating their work, and we will be supplementing that work through original research as part of the center.
So I know we're right at 1, so I just want to say thank you so much to everyone. And we really look forward to connecting with you and learning from you as we move ahead. And we really do want to hear from you. So please use that email and reach out. Lots of you all probably know us individually, and that's absolutely fine too. Thanks again. And sorry to go the minute over, but we look forward to talking soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.